Soon the day will arrive when we will be together, and no longer will we live in fear.
Scarborough Fair. Parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. Remember me to one who lives there. She once was a true love of mine. Tell her to make Parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme, on snow-crested ground, without no seam or blankets and pillows, the child of the mountain, she'll be a true love of sleeps on the wind of the cloud and calm. Tell her to find me as I go of love, a sprinkling of me. Parsley, sage, rosemary, and washes the bride with silent tear. Between the salt water rustles your strands and polishes a gun. She'll be a true love of mine. Tell her to reap it in a sickle, billows blazing in scarlet battalion. Parsley, sage, rosemary, and generals order their soldiers to kill and gather it all and to fight for a cause they long ago forgotten. She'll be a true love of mine. Scarborough Fair. Parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. Remember me to one who is there. She once was a true love of mine.
Good day, everyone. Welcome to our Sunday morning worship service at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of York. I'm Robert Felton. I will be helping to lead our service this morning. Today, our service was inspired by the void created by the cancellation of high school graduation ceremonies, graduation celebrations, high school proms, the list goes on. While our service today will not replace these annual rites of passage for thousands of young people, we nevertheless take this opportunity to acknowledge their achievements and look for meaning in the new world that will greet them as they move forward with their lives. This Sunday, we are also pleased to share with you again some music played by Gretchen and Sophie Dekker and Lydia Paulos. We also have Averie Clarke with us. We'll share some other music and song, as well as some scenes from the iconic 1967 movie starring Dustin Hoffman, Anne Bancroft, and Catherine Ross, The Graduate. Our service this morning is being brought to you some way or another, thanks to Tesla, Taliaferro, and Doug Hober, who are in the sanctuary here with us this morning. Our mission here at UUCY, we are a religious community that inspires the mind and spirit, honors religious freedom, and embraces diversity. Our members minister to each other with love and work for a just society. And so we come together again this morning for worship and fellowship as we greet old friends with love and new visitors alike. We can do that by waving at one another on the computer screens and saying hi in the chat room. In keeping with our Unitarian Universalist tradition, we light a chalice as we begin our service. Our asylum seeker, BC, who Arthur and Ellen are sponsoring, he's here with us today. BC will be lighting our chalice for us. So we invite you to light a chalice at home as well. Our chalice lighting words today were written by Reverend Terry. The light from our chalice flame is a holy light. It lights the entrance to the world of our dreams of a new world in which freedom is not for the few, but for the many. Our dreams of being able to hug and touch and hold one another again. Our dreams of a future in which our life's goals will be achieved without causing harm or suffering to others. This young flame is a symbol of the promise and power of the young people whose graduation we honor today. May we who arrive on this earth before the ones we honor today follow behind their light as they shine as they embark on their life's journey. And now we will have some music from Gretchen.
So, once again, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our recorded worship service from the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of York. We apologize once again for the fact that we were unable to bring you this service live this morning. I want you to know that we have our hearts and souls into it just as much as if you were watching us live. I am Reverend Terry Cummings, and it's my pleasure to be the minister at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of York. A couple of weeks ago, those of us who work on planning Sunday morning worship services were talking, and we remarked that this year the high school graduates will be deprived of their proms and their usual graduation commencement ceremonies. And we started to talk, and we thought that we would just give a shout out to our graduating seniors. And as that idea took hold, eventually we decided to build the service around that very idea. And we were very close to having the service ready, or at least I was, and then I read in the newspapers and online that President Obama was doing a nationwide high school graduation commencement just yesterday, Saturday. I don't know why they asked him and not me, because I was all ready to go, but they didn't. So I had to reshape the service just a little bit, but I think that I still feel that we should make today's service something like a high school commencement service for those graduating seniors. But we begin our service today with some words of gathering. They are by the Reverend Gretchen Haley. Reverend Haley is the minister of the UU congregation in Fort Collins, Colorado. Her words of gathering. Come in, all who long to know how to love this world, how to keep eyes open, hands unclenched, arms wide. Breathing deeply in and out. This is a time to practice because there is still so much good and beauty and joy. But it can be hard to keep telling this tale with all the news and the wind and the rain and the trembling earth. Who wants to love this life anyway? Come in, all who teeter on this edge of cynicism, broken-hearted and trying still to remember laughter and kindness, and the chance to be alive in these days when so much is at stake. In this place, we remind each other why we persist, giving each other courage to take this path that is not always easy to keep practicing. This love that cannot, will not let us go, and still calls us on. Come, let us worship together. We share with you now a song called We Are the Mothers of Change. It was recorded by one of my colleagues in her congregation. I hope that you enjoy it as much as I did when I first heard this song.
Couldn't stop rape culture, couldn't take back the night, but Gen X women survive through fight or flight. Glass ceilings above us, yeah, we knew Bush lied, but we didn't stop the war, honey. No, we barely even tried, but we raised the millennials. We let them play outside the closet and we kept them safe. We stayed up late, learning new pronouns, new names. We raised the millennials. Yeah, we are the mothers of change. Mothers of the movement, mothers in the fight, wouldn't let their black sons disappear in the night. We'll say their names till it's made right, till the guns stop blasting, deadly power so wide. We raise the millennials. We let them play outside I heard Mother Steinem on the radio say she'd been waiting for her friends to be born. She'd been waiting for the millennials, and I cried 'cause she was right, and I cried 'cause she was wrong. We didn't run from the battlefield, Gloria. We were sowing the seeds of war. We may not have won yet, honey, but we raised the ones that we've been waiting for. We're the mothers of Parkland, of Me Too's silent plight. Though we came up in darkness, we raised up light, raised up water protectors, labored BLM and trans rights. We raised Emma, Greta, and AOC, mothers hidden from sight. We raised the millennials. We're raising Generation Z. Hey, maybe we haven't changed much, honey, but honey, we can make this claim. We raised the millennials. Yeah, we are the mothers of change.
Hello. This is a story for all seniors across the country, whether they be high school seniors or college seniors who have had all of those things that they were looking forward to be taken away from them. All those hopes and expectations and those rites and rituals that you were looking forward to, and you're not able to participate in them the way those who have in the past have. There's a bit of sad irony that on the day we were doing this worship, to honor all of those and to talk about all the things that were taken away from you, Zoom was taken away from you too. So I'm sorry that we've had to kind of take it away from being live and in person with you, but we will persevere, we'll get through, we'll adapt, we'll change, just as you all have with grace this year and for the last few months. While this is a service for all across the country, I do want to take a quick moment to recognize the 6 UUCY seniors. And that is, those are Kat Pauling, Evie Loomis, Thomas Paglio, Julian Falk, Sophie Dekker, and Keith White. So this is to you, it's to everyone, but especially to you all. And sorry for having to go through what you're going through. But know that we are here with you and will support you no matter what you do and no matter what you're going through. So here's the story I wanted to tell. First, when we were thinking about this, the first thing that came to my mind was the poem Harlem by Langston Hughes about a dream deferred. Because that's kind of what this felt like to me. Like all of your dreams were being deferred. They were being put off. They were being pushed. And what happens to that dream? Does it wither in the sun, or does it explode? What happens to it? But I ultimately wanted to move away from the wondering to a different place of how we get through these unknown and difficult times. So the story I'm going to share with you today is a story from the Muslim tradition, and it's called The Dog at the Well, and I hope you enjoy it. So there was someone who left their home and they went out for a long journey, and it was a hot day. And this person had not walked very long before their head began to ache and the mouth felt very dry. And the sun was blazing high above. There were no clouds in the sky, and all the fields that they passed were brown and withered. And as far as they could see, there was no water. And they thought to themselves, I'm so thirsty. I need to find water. Surely I'm going to come to a well at some point. I just need to keep going. And just as they had that thought, there by the side of the road was a well. So thankfully, they ran over to it, and they could almost taste the sweetness of that water. But when they peered over the wall, they looked down and the well was dry. So they were disheartened and even more thirsty now. They continued walking. And they were hoping that they would come to another well. And sure enough, they did. At last, water. But that well was dry too. It seemed as if there was not a drop of moisture in the entire land. And they thought to themselves, I don't think I can go on much further without getting some water. And then they saw another well. But they were almost too afraid to hope that there would be water in that well. So they slowly crept up to the well, and as they peered over, far below, in the darkness, the water glistened. And they said, Allah be praised. And they looked around for a rope and a bucket. But of course, there was no rope. There was no bucket. So how are they going to reach the water? Only one way remained. If the water would not come to them, they would have to go to the water. So they scrambled over the top of the well, and bracing themselves against the wall, they slid down, descending into the deep darkness until finally they reached the water. And they cupped their hands and scooped up that sweet water, wetting their mouths and their throats. And they murmured, Allah be praised for this liquid of life. They felt much better. And so they began the long climb back up, bracing themselves against the wall, out of the well. And they reached the top, and they stood in the sun, and then they began to start walking again. But they heard a soft, sad whimper coming from behind them. And they looked down and they saw a dog. And for the purpose of this story, this T-Rex will be the dog. And the dog was very sad and had its head down and was whimpering, and it walked over and it licked the edge of their robe, licking off the little bit of moisture that this person had carried up from the well. And they realized this poor animal was just as thirsty as I was. And they will certainly die if they don't get water, just as I would. So the dog, wagging its tail because it got some liquid from the robe, could see that this person was going to help them. So the man said, okay, or the person said, okay, wait here. So they go to the well, and they said, I'm going to bring you some water. And down they go. They get all the way to the bottom of that dark well, and they try to think about how they're going to bring the water up. So they take off their boots, and they fill them with water. And then they look around, they try to figure out, how am I going to get those boots up? So they take them, and in their mouth, climbing up, see, I can't even do it, climbing up against the walls, they carry their boots all the way up. And it was much harder this time to get to the top. And the heavy, water-filled boots were pulling at their teeth. They almost dropped them multiple times. But finally, slowly, they climb out of the well. And they offer the boot to the dog. And the dog happily licks it up, right? Think about the few months that you have all been going through. These things that you were looking forward to. All these rites of passage, all these rituals, prom, graduation. When we first went into lockdown, first it was 2 weeks. And there was some hope that it would just be a short little stay and then we could come back. Just like when this person got to the well, that first well. There was hope. But that quickly went away. And then it was a little bit longer. But then it was delayed. Again, like the second well. And finally, they said, school will not meet in person for the rest of the year. And if you think about it, that could be hope-killing. It could be soul-crushing. And I'm sure for many of you, it has been. We are guided by hope. We're guided by things that we're looking forward to in the future. Confidently hoping that those things will reach us. And then we get blindsided by something, like this pandemic, like the thirst that this person experienced on their travels. The thing is, we can do it, and we will find ways, but we can do it only if we do it together. And when we struggle, like this man did, like the dog did, like many of you have with these experiences, it is being in community, faith and hope that things will get better because we will come together and band together and make it so. That is what keeps us going. And I know that this has been a tough year for all of you seniors, whether it was college or high school. It has been a tough year for a lot of us. But what makes this easier, what gives us support, what gives us faith and hope, is community and coming together. And I want you to remember that even though these things didn't happen for you in the way that you would hope that they would, we are all still here for you. We will continue to be here for you and help you get through. When you go off to college, if you go off to college, or if you go into working a job, whatever it may be, whatever the future holds for you, this is a community of faith that holds you with hope and love. So I hope you remember that as you move on in the coming days and weeks and months and even years. We will get through this. Hopefully, the world will look a little bit different on the other side in good ways, and I know that there are some things that we wish we could have experienced. But know that you always, no matter where you are on your journey, have us. And that is what I want you to take with you as you go on into your life, is the love and support of this community, and hopefully the communities that you will continue to make and build along your journeys. I wish you blessed, blessed journeys, and know that I will always be here.
I want to send this one out to the kids that marched in Seattle. And then we're at the Seattle Center. Come gather round, people, wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown, and accept it that soon you'll be drenched to the bone. If your time to you is worth saving, well then you'd better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone, for the times they are changing. And all you writers and critics who prophesize with your pens, yeah, well keep your eyes wide, the chance won't come again. And don't speak too soon, for the wheel's still in spin. And there's no telling who that it's naming, for the loser right now might be later to win. And the times, they are changing. All you senators and congressmen, please heed the call. Don't you stand in your doorway, don't lock up your halls, for he who gets hurt will be he who has stalled. And that battle outside that's raging will soon be rattling your windows and shaking your walls, for the times they are changing. Oh, you mothers and fathers from across the land, well, don't criticize what you can't understand, 'cause your sons and your daughters are beyond your command. And your old road is rapidly aging, so come on and get out of the new one if you cannot lend your hand, for the times, well, they are changing.
At this time in our service, we take this opportunity to reflect on what it means to be a self-sustaining and life-giving community. One of the goals of our congregation is to encourage all who gather here to be generous both in spirit and in action, to bring each of us closer through acts of creation and compassion. We now take an online offering that allows us to exercise that all-important generosity of spirit, an offering that will support this self-supporting congregation and its various ministries. Information about how to give online was included in the email that accompanied your order of service, and it's on our website under the Give menu. As we gather the offering this morning, please remember that this quarter's Share the Plate partner from now to the end of June is White Rose Outreach. White Rose Outreach provides basic necessities and advocacy to people in need. It is 100% volunteer run and 100% volunteer funded. White Rose has recently moved its giveaway location to the parking lot at the York Food Bank, 254 West Princess Street in York, Pennsylvania, 17401. White Rose outreach volunteers will pass out needed hygiene supplies, diapers, and other items to anyone who shows up on May 24th from 1 to 2. Let us now pause to give thanks for the many blessings we have each received in our lives. Let us acknowledge the generosity of spirit expressed through this offering. May we use these gifts wisely and well.
So this being the season of commencement ceremonies, our reading today is from a commencement address given by Paul Hawken, H-A-W-K-E-N. Mr. Hawken is an environmentalist and author. He is a lifelong worker for environmental justice, and he gave this commencement address at the University of Portland, Oregon on May 3rd of 2009 to the graduating class of 2009. My reading is an excerpt from that commencement address. I thoroughly recommend that you go onto the internet and read the whole thing because it's very inspiring. Paul Hawken. Let's begin with the starting point, class of 2009. You are going to have to figure out what it means to be a human being on Earth at a time when every living system is declining and the rate of decline is accelerating. Basically, civilization needs a new operating system. You are the programmers, and we need it within a few decades. This planet came with a set of instructions. but we seem to have misplaced them. Important rules like don't poison the water, soil, or air, don't let the earth get overcrowded, and don't touch the thermostat have been broken. The first living cell came into being nearly 40 million centuries ago, and its direct descendants are in all of our bloodstreams. Literally, you are breathing molecules this very second that were inhaled by Moses, Mother Teresa, and Bono. We are vastly interconnected. Our fates are inseparable. We are here because the dream of every cell is to become two cells, and dreams come true. In each of you are 1 quadrillion cells, 90% of which are not human cells. Your body is a community, and without those other microorganisms, you would perish in hours. Each human cell has 400 billion molecules conducting millions of processes between trillions of atoms. The total cellular activity in one human body is staggering. 1 septillion actions at any one moment, a 1 with 24 zeros. In a millisecond, our body has undergone 10 times more processes than there are stars in the universe. So I have 2 questions for you. First, can you feel your body? Stop for a moment. Feel your body. 1 septillion activities going on simultaneously. And your body does this so well, you're free to ignore it and wonder instead when this speech will end. You can feel it. It is called life. This is who you are. Second question. Who is in charge of your body? Who is managing those molecules? Hopefully, not a political party. Life is creating the conditions that are conducive to life inside you, just as in all of nature. Our innate nature is to create the conditions that are conducive to life. What I want you to imagine is that collectively, humanity is evincing a deep, innate wisdom in coming together to heal the wounds and insults of the past. Thus ends our reading for today.
I meant with your future, your life.
Well, that's a little hard to say.
Ben.
Excuse me. Mr. McGuire.
Ben.
Mr. McGuire.
Come with me for a minute. I want to talk to you. Excuse us, Joanne.
Of course.
Thank you.
Oh, he is it's just wonderful. I look at him and I can't believe it. I simply can't believe it.
I just want to say one word to you. Just one word.
Yes, sir.
Are you listening?
Yes, I am.
Plastics.
Exactly how do you mean?
There's a great future in plastics. Think about it. Will you think about it?
Yes, I will.
Enough said.
Land of hope and glory, mother of the free, how can we extol thee, who are born of thee? Wider still and wider, may thy bounds be set. God that made thee mighty, make thee mightier yet. These are the words of a song celebrating British imperialism and British patriotism. If you grew up in the UK of the 1960s and 70s like I did, chances are you would know the music and may also have known the words by heart. The song is set to a piece of music by Edward Elgar. It's called Pomp and Circumstance. You probably know all the music yourselves from your own graduations. Land of hope and glory, mother of the free, How can we extol thee, who are born of thee? Wider still and wider may thy bounds be set. God that made thee mighty, make thee mightier yet, call blimey. You know that music, I'm sure. The title, Pomp and Circumstance, comes from a passage in Shakespeare's Othello, in which Othello is nostalgically bidding farewell to war. He bids farewell to the pride, pomp, and circumstance of glorious war. British patriotism? War? You can imagine my surprise after I came to live in the United States 41 years ago to find that Britain's version of My Country 'Tis of Thee is played at graduation ceremonies across the United States. And over the years, I've shared this surprise with many people, but I've yet to meet anyone who finds it remarkable, much less offensive. High school graduation is an important milestone in most people's lives. It is a rite of passage that marks academic achievement. There seems to be an almost romantic aura around high school graduations. People say, you have the world at your fingertips. Oh, your life is stretching out before you. What are you going to do with your life right now? Haven't you thought about that? Expectations run high all around. But the reality is often a little bit different. It can be a time of confusion, uncertainty, even fear. Wondering, will I go to college? What kind of job will I have? There are many similarities between the 60s and 70s when I came of age and the present day, despite the many differences. When I was coming of age in the 60s and 70s, technology seemed just as exciting to us then as it does to the graduating class now. We had manned missions to the moon. I'll never forget when my parents brought home our very first color television. The world and the future then seemed to have no limits, just as it does today. And then, like now, it was also a time of questioning established norms, a time of searching for alternative lifestyles to the so-called American dream. But one of the main differences between my generation and my own children's generation, who came of age about a dozen years ago, is that they were part of the first generation that could look forward to having less, not more, than their parents. And that seems to be even more true today for the graduating class of 2020. And in addition to all that, the graduating class of 2020 have to live through this awful pandemic and hope that they will come out the other side, still able to live a life of relative normalcy. I chose the movie The Graduate as the backdrop to our service today because then, like now, it seems to evince the uncertainty, the anger, and the confusion on the minds of graduates. The movie The Graduate was released in 1967. It's based on a book that was published in 1963 by a man called Charles Webb. And the book chronicles the story of Benjamin Braddock, who comes home as a graduate to California from a small college in the eastern United States. And everyone in the movie is jabbing Ben, what are you going to do? Congratulations, what's the next step? And he is grumpy and ticked off and doesn't know what to do. And he stumbles into a love affair with an older woman, the wife of his father's business partner, Mrs. Robinson. Some of you may remember the Simon and Garfunkel song, Here's to you, Mrs. Robinson. Our nation turns its lonely eyes to you. So he has an affair with Mrs. Robinson, Benjamin does, but he falls in love with her daughter, Elaine. If you haven't watched the movie, I recommend that you watch it because it is an American classic. And without giving too much away, at the end of the movie, Ben and Elaine, they get on a bus and then they look at one another and they wonder what they're doing. And then the movie ends. Some of us in the baby boomer generation wonder what we might have done differently to stave off the environmental crisis that the world faces today, as well as the terrible income inequality and other injustices that we assumed would disappear once we succeeded to the reins of power held by our parents' generation. You see, those of us who came to age in the 60s and 70s, we thought we knew what we were doing. We thought we were hot. You know what? We thought we would bring an end to poverty and injustice because we knew so much more than our parents did. And here we are, a generation or two later, looking back, and it didn't happen. And recently we've received a harsh reminder that the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part isn't always wide open spaces and romantic walks in the country. That interdependent web brings things like viruses that we have to accept are part of life. Our reader this morning, our speaker, Hawken, wrote the following in his commencement address. We have tens of thousands of abandoned homes without people and tens of thousands of abandoned people without homes. We have failed bankers advising failed regulators on how to save failed assets. We are the only species on the planet without full employment. Brilliant. We have an economy that tells us that it is cheaper to destroy Earth in real time rather than renew it, restore it, and sustain it. You can print money to bail out a bank, but you can't print life to bail out a planet. At present, he wrote, we are stealing the future, selling it in the present, and calling it gross domestic product. We can just as easily have an economy that is based on healing the future instead of stealing it. One of the scenes from The Graduate that we're showing you this morning is a very iconic scene, the scene where Ben is advised by an older person he should get into the business of plastics. Who knew 53 years ago, that plastics would start filling the Pacific Ocean in islands of plastic that go for miles and miles and miles. Clearly, in 2020, it is time for change. And this pandemic is an opportunity for that change. For the class of 2020, it is now your time to make a difference where the baby boomer generation came up short. You see, even with 30 million people unemployed, we are still the richest nation in the world, and we produce enough food for all. The wealthiest 1% of us can afford to pay the entire cost of this pandemic if we have the will to make it happen. And so I'm going to add my own thoughts to this commencement address to the class of 2020. Don't plan out your life with too much detail, because our lives seldom unfold as we planned. Always see yourselves as spiritual beings. Take time to realize that you are alive and that your life is unique in the universe. Pay attention to the things that bring you joy and try to hold on to them as much as you can, as long as you can, because that is the healthiest spiritual practice of all, experiencing joy. Don't be afraid to love. Love should never be a reason to feel afraid, whether you love a person of the same sex or not, gay, straight, or bisexual. Never be afraid to love. Remember, no one ever lay on their deathbed wishing that they hadn't laughed so much. Always try to laugh whenever you can. My hope is that the graduating class of 2020, instead of writing new words to that old song that I sang a few minutes ago, will instead give new meaning to the old words. Perhaps this land one day will be a land of hope for all. Perhaps we will find glory in peace instead of war. Perhaps America finally will become the mother of the free, freedom from want and poverty, freedom from ignorance and freedom from disease. Class of 2020, we believe in you. Thank you for what you have already done for us. Thank you for being.
Let us prepare to extinguish the chalice. You folks at home, you know what to do. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
I have some closing words for you today. They're from a book called Almost Everything, Notes on Hope by Anne Lamott. Hope changes as you get a little older, from the hope that this or that happens to hope in life, old friends, laughter, art, goodness, helpers. I hope and am amazed some early mornings at just finding myself alive. I thought as I approached 18 years old that I was a goner for sure. And here I am. I am still alive, still here, and often in a good mood. Other early mornings, not so much. My back aches, my vision fades, I can't concentrate. It's like in the Samuel Beckett novel, you must go on. I can't go on. I'll go on. May your roots grow deep, may your branches grow wide, may our Zoom connection work next time. May you all be safe. Go in peace. Go in love. Go in joy. You'll see us again soon.